Afternoon. City of Anderson Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session. Let me see here. Do we have any addenda to the agenda?
No, sir.
No, sir. How about the minutes? We got the minutes here. We got a motion to approve the minutes. Got a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Let's get right through this thing here. First thing on the menu here is, let's see, application number AA22-8. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is in relation to 1000 North Main Street. This is a photo of the property. You can see the office building from the distance. But again, we're talking tonight about a variance from sign requirements, and I'll show you a few perspectives of it in a moment. But the applicant is requesting a variance from sign requirements in order to install a monument sign that exceeds the maximum square footage allowed in the zoning district. And the property is zoned NC neighborhood commercial. And according to those guidelines, you can either have a monument sign with a maximum height of 10 feet, or you can even have a freestanding pole sign with a maximum square footage of 25 feet. So pole signs in this zoning district can be taller, monument signs a little bit smaller per the guidelines. And again, this is a perspective of the sign that's existing. It's actually 12 feet in height, so it's considered a legal non-conforming use. But as I mentioned, in this zoning district, you can have freestanding pole signs, like you can see the Domino sign nearby. You can see another freestanding sign. You can see a few monument signs. But again, per the guidelines, monument signs, the maximum height is 10 feet. The applicant's wishing to replace that existing sign with a new monument sign, as you can see right here. The proposed sign is 15 feet in height, so technically they're asking for a variance of 5 feet from height requirements. The maximum square footage for monument signs in the neighborhood commercial district, 65 square feet. That's right on that number. So it's about 65 square feet. So again, we're just asking for a variance from height requirements. Now, when you do consider variances for signage requests, in our zoning ordinance, there's two criteria that must be met. And one is that the adjustment for the proposed sign will not significantly increase or lead to street level clutter, will not dominate the visual image of the area, and will not be inconsistent with the objectives of our sign regulations. Also, it's required that the sign will not create a traffic or safety hazard. And also, the criteria must meet one of the following two, or meet both of them if you can, that the adjustment will allow a unique sign of exceptional design or style, which will be visible landmark, and the adjustment will allow a sign that is more consistent with the architecture and development of the site. And from a staff perspective, we're recommending approval because we think that each of the criteria are actually met. They're asking for a monument sign, variance of 5 feet, which is 15 feet in height. They could technically put up a 25-foot tall pole sign, but they're choosing to install a shorter sign so that will not dominate the visual image of the area. Obviously, the sign will not create a traffic hazard. It actually is set back from the site triangle, so it won't cause any problems from that perspective. Also, when we're looking at unique sign of exceptional design or style, the monument signs, as you know, typically have more attractive design features. And you see on this particular sign that you have this triangular piece on top. As a matter of fact, the sign, the bulk of the sign goes up about 11 and a half feet. So it's, although it's 15 feet in height, 3 feet of it is actually that triangular protrusion going up. And also from the zoning ordinance, it says the sign is more consistent with the architecture and development of the site. We see that this sign mimics the design characteristics of the building's facade. Again, we're talking about that feature here. You can see in one of these photos, again, you can see the building that has that same feature there. So again, you see that it mimics that. We believe that it's not out of character with what's existing. It's very similar in size and scale. So we do recommend approval of it. And the applicants are here tonight to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mr. McKenzie from the board? No questions? Is the applicant, you said the applicant is here, Mr.
Yes,
McKenzie?
both applicants, representing the applicant.
Would you like to say anything in your behalf there, sir?
I appreciate the improvement. It's gonna be a very good looking sign when we get finished with. Those are, the letters on it are pushed through acrylic, which, allow it, it's not gonna be overly bright, because that would be, a problem, but it gives the light a good glow around the face. The one sign I can think of is a church over on Whitehall Road that has that exact same build on it with the push-through letters, but that's it's really high-end, really good-looking things. It's going to be very pretty.
Any complaints, Mr. McKenzie?
No, sir.
I personally went by there in the last couple of days, and what you just got through saying, I agree with you, sir, that is a nice sign. Actually, the one that sticks out is the Domino's
Right.
thing, this and that. This is a very nice sign. Normally, this board is very picky when it comes to signs and so forth, because that road has got so many of them. But in this case, that's a good-looking sign, and Mr. McKenzie did his homework, and I don't have a problem with it. Board, any questions or anything? Do we have a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion we approve.
We have a motion to approve it from Mr. Belloc. We have a second. We have a second. You got it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much. I'll approve it through the system. Yeah, well, then you get your sign.
Okay. Next one we have is AA 23-1, Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, thank you. This is 3205 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Sorry, this image is a little brighter, at least it is over here. Maybe it's better on your screen. But this is Martin Luther King Boulevard. This is actually new construction. It's a Little Caesars Pizza that's being constructed here. Planet Fitness is located in this area. Church is located in here. This is the strip center located behind it. Brewster's Ice Cream is located over here. And this is a request for a variance from sign requirements in order to have wall signage that exceeds the city's requirements. Recently, when they received, they got their sign permit, and they installed the sign that we were talking about tonight inadvertently, according to the applicant. They were apologetic for that. And they could not make it tonight. They were scheduled to come last week, and unfortunately they couldn't make it this week. But what I told them was, I'll be glad to present this tonight. If you have no problems with it, obviously we can move forward with the variance. But if you do have questions or concerns about this request, we can table it until the next meeting, and then they can come to that. But again, the sign is already in place, but I'll go over which ones are currently allowed, which one was put up inadvertently. This is the front of the building, essentially. This is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. This sign faces MLK, and that one is allowed. Again, you can have signs, wall signs, facing streets or parking lots that have a primary entrance. Those are considered primary building walls. This site has two primary building walls per the guidelines. You have this one facing Martin Luther King. We consider this one to be a primary building wall because this is it's not a public street necessarily, but it is a driveway entrance to the shopping center. As you can see, the sign is located right here. The one in question is on the opposite side of the building. It faces toward the west, but there is no parking lot or primary entrance per the zoning code. Now, also, interestingly enough, the applicant, this is all the signage they're going to have on the property. They're not going to have a freestanding sign, that has Little Caesars on it. They could technically have a 25-foot tall pole sign out of the street frontage, but they're electing to rather have it like this from a balance perspective on the building. But again, they did inadvertently put this one up without getting BZA approval, so the good thing is you can actually see what we're talking about tonight, but otherwise, it was something that was installed illegally. But that's what we're coming here tonight for. Again, earlier, when we talk about sign variances, it must meet criteria A and B, which states that the sign will not significantly increase or lead to street level clutter. It won't dominate the visual image of the area. It won't create a traffic hazard. Also, one of the two criteria, the next ones should be met, that the adjustment will allow a sign of exceptional design or style, which will be a visible landmark, and the adjustment will allow a sign that's more consistent with the architecture and development of the site. And when we look at this, we look at it kind of collectively. We see that it does meet three of the criteria, that by adding the third wall sign, the applicant does not intend on adding a freestanding sign on the property, which does reduce street level clutter. Again, they could have a 25-foot tall pole sign on the site. If you do approve this, the staff does recommend that in your approval, you state that if this variance is granted, that they are not allowed to have a freestanding sign, not to come back in a year or so and ask for a freestanding sign. That way we can have it for the record, if you choose. Also, we see that the sign that we're talking about does not create a traffic hazard. And one other piece of this, part of the justification was that although this is not considered a primary building wall, it doesn't have an entrance door or faces a parking lot, they're stating that this is a critical access point because their drive-through window is located here. And it's essential for the public to pick up food orders, so they see it basically acting as a public entrance. And we've seen situations like this in the past where these requests have been made, where they see this to be probably their busiest side of the building more so than the other side of the building. But again, we do recommend approval of it based on the fact that it does provide a balance to the building. They will not have a freestanding pole sign on the street. So again, we recommend approval of it with the condition that if it is approved, that they are not allowed to come back later on with an additional sign on their property. And again, the applicant's not here. If you have questions for the applicant or concerns about this request, we can table it. Otherwise, we can move forward with it as you see fit.
Any questions for Mr. McKenzie? Looking at this, sometimes you have to use a little common sense in some of these sign petitions and things like that. That's a business that's trying to make a living. I don't see anything wrong with that sign. In fact, if I'm coming down MLK Boulevard and I see that, it would help me. And I think that I don't have a problem with it. I think the board maybe should go ahead and approve this with the condition that the site cannot have any freestanding signs in the future, like you were saying, Mr. Mack.
I agree.
You want to have a motion on that, gentlemen?
I'll make the motion, we'll approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
We have the second, Mr. McKenzie. That way we can get it over, they don't have to be coming back.
Sure. They would appreciate that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I think they're coming from out of town
Right.
anyway.
Okay.
We'll need a vote on that, a second, we'll need a vote.
Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
It's okay.
We have a vote on this. Everybody in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, Mr. Mack is done. Let's go to the last one here. AA 23-2.
All right, last one. Of course, it seems like lately, every time we gather, there's only one item on the agenda, so at least you're getting your money's worth tonight to have 3 requests. So, and again, they're all sign requirement variances, so interestingly enough. But this pertains to 1214 North Fant Street. It's zoned LO, limited office. And this building, it's been in use as a number of things over the years. It was originally built as a drugstore back in the late 90s, around the year 2000, but it's been a number of things over the years. This is a perspective of it from Fant Street. This is the area we're going to be talking about. This is kind of when it was built, this is kind of the area where the signage has always been located on the property. Up to 150 square feet has been on the sign wall over the years based on different uses. This is a little harder to see because they painted the building a gray color, but this is a view of it from across the street. The property again is zoned LO Limited Office, which is one of our least intensive zoning classifications. It allows, office and low intensity retail uses. And as a result, the sign allotment in that district is a little smaller than what you see in neighborhood commercial or general commercial. A maximum allowable signage in the LO district is 50 square feet. And the applicant's requesting a variance of about 50 feet so they can have approximately 100 square feet of signage on the wall in order to basically fill a good portion of the wall where signage is usually located. If you can look at this photo here, essentially the signage will cover this area on either side of the glass. It doesn't extend any further than where the glass is. You can see here, but they're asking for a variance so they can install signage of approximately 100 square feet. According to the applicant, they feel as if they put in the 50 square feet, it will just be very unproportional to the size and scale of the building. Along Fant Street, most of the buildings are smaller. It used to be residential maybe at one time, but they're smaller buildings. This is probably the largest building in that stretch of Fant Street between Greenville Street and Boulevard. So, like I said, when there's been previous uses, and I believe what happened was this was built before the new zoning guidelines were in place, so they were able to have larger signs on the wall in the past. But now they're asking for variance so they can have larger signage on this area where signage has typically been located on the building. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but there's 4 criteria that you need to take a look at. 2 of them are required to be met. One is that the sign will not significantly increase or lead to street level clutter and will not dominate the visual image of the area. The sign will not create a traffic hazard. And then it needs to meet one of the following criteria: that it allows a unique sign of exceptional design or style, which will be a visible landmark, and the adjustment will allow a sign that's more consistent with the architecture and development of the site. And we see that the A, B, and D of those criteria are met by increasing the wall signage to 100 square feet. It won't dominate the visual image of the area, basically due to the building size in relation to the other buildings in the area. It would basically be in proportion with a larger building with such street frontage. Does not create a traffic hazard. And we do see, and the applicant feels as if the proposed signage better fits the projecting portion of the building that essentially was designed for signage in the past. Like I said, when it was a drugstore, signage was always located, on the majority of this and in other businesses as well. But again, according to this, 100 square feet, you can see that it does remain within the glass area. So they'll be essentially covering this section here. The applicant could not make it tonight, and so they apologize for that. But again, that's what we have for you this evening.
Any questions for Ms. McKenzie?
Will this one have a freestanding sign anywhere else?
They do, and it meets requirements, and it's sorry I did not bring that, but it's like a 10-foot monument sign. It's not going to be a large pole sign. It's a little more scale to what you see along the street, which we thought was important as well. So no pole signs there. It's more of a monument type or lower level sign.
That building would probably look better with a sign on it. It'll give it some personality.
Yeah, and at first they were asking for, looking at 150, and we explained that that's a lot, and particularly when there's 50 square feet. So they started scaling it back, and they arrived at about 100 square feet. I think 98 is what they said in their most recent conversation with me. We'll double check that once they submit revised drawings.
Anything from the board? Anything else from the board? Do I have a motion to grant this?
So moved.
We have a motion, second.
Second.
We have a second. Is granted, Mr. McKenzie.
All
Is-
in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Do we have any other business, Mr. Mack? Is that it?
That is it, and I believe we have something scheduled for the February 23rd meeting, but don't hold me to that, but we may have a meeting in February, so.
Okay.
But, that's right, today's the last day of January, I can say next month then, so, yeah.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We are out of here.
Tell.
Thanks for adjusting your schedules and everything too, that was good.
Good.